Welcome to the Live the Call podcast, where I speak with guests living and working their soul's purpose. I'm Pamela Downs, founder of Spirit Calling and trans-channeler of the Great Council of Light. Every episode, our guests share their awakening story, and together we learn how they came to live their spirit's call. Join me in tales of self-discovery, enlightenment, and transformation to amplify your healing journey. Okay, get ready for an enriching journey as we uncover the captivating world of neurodivergence through art. I'm your host, Pamela Downs, and today we have the honor of welcoming Kyla Yager, a visionary artist whose work transcends boundaries and celebrates the beauty of ADHD through her unique style of intuitive ADHD art. So cool. Welcome, Kyla.
Nice to meet you. I'm
Yeah,
so happy
thank
to
you
be
so much.
here.
Yeah, we're so glad that you're here. Thank you so much for joining us. So your journey as an artist is incredibly inspiring. Our podcast serves as an inspiration to people on their awakening journey. So that's awakening to who you are, awakening your spiritual awakening, awakening to your unique talents and the gifts that you bring to the world. And me personally, as an artist, like I understand that desire to connect with art. And I had that whole journey my whole life. And as a spiritualist, I understand your desire and pull to connect with art because there's a higher energy there and a like a connection that you have through your art. So I'd love to just go down the road of discovering Kyla and have you share with our audience like what initially sparked your passion for art. I'm going to start at the beginning, okay? And how your journey led you to the creation of intuitive ADHD art. And I'm going to hand it over to you now, Kyla.
Awesome. So yeah, I've been creating art since I was a little kid. I started painting when I was 15, but I've been drawing all the time, anywhere, everywhere. But I was also just a generally creative kid. So I liked theater, I liked music, I liked pretty much anything that got my creative juices flowing. Um, but I started out in realism, like most art students
Mm.
do throughout school. It wasn't until I was towards the end of high school when I started discovering abstract art. And I was at a college art fair in high school, and someone was looking through my sketchbook, saw one of my doodles, and was like, "You got to make this big."
Ah,
And then
that's
I did.
cool.
And
Hmm.
around that time was when I got my ADHD diagnosis, and with the introduction of like medication and just this new mindset and all of these revelations starting to unmask who I really was, suddenly my work went from hyperrealism portraits to these hyper detailed large scale abstract paintings, sort of like
Wow.
optical art.
Yeah.
And then like over time, I went to undergrad, I did my BFA in visual art at York University. And I did it both like abstract and realism separately. I never really combined the two together until COVID. And during that time, I sort of saw it as kind of like a artist in residency in a way to sort of like dive deep into my style and really become in tune with my intuition and how I utilize my style when I paint. And I found that my realism started creeping into my abstraction. I started out
Mm.
with this imaginary friend series where I was making portraits of these made up characters from my mind, uh, to sort of quote unquote keep me company during the pandemic. And then as I kept creating these characters, my abstraction kind of tore them apart in a way.
Mhm.
So there's like eyeballs and mouths and noses and all kinds of parts of like the face, which end up portraying emotion. And it was a way for me to learn how to become my most genuine self and learn how to unmask my ADHD and my mental health to its truest form. So
Wow.
now when I create, there's no pre-planning. It just happens naturally. And
Mm.
uh, as much as the journey to get to this style was kind of tough through COVID and a lot of mental health journeys, I'm leaving out a lot of information there, but
Yeah, right.
I'm really glad that my journey has led me here to create in a way that makes me feel so good when I do it.
Yeah, you're pulling it out of you. It is you. I mean, your art
Yeah.
is you. So when you were back in high school, besides that one pivotal moment where someone saw your doodles, right? And like made your perspective change to see something you hadn't seen. You looked at that as just doodling. You didn't really give it the emphasis that you have been giving, like the realism that you were studying. Was there anyone in school or a teacher or anyone that like inspired you beyond that one moment that kind of helped you and assisted you along the way?
Well, my high school art teachers, shout out to Miss Mueller and Mr. Sermon, they were very good art teachers.
Hmm.
And mostly because they were also practicing artists outside of teaching. And a lot of professors in undergrad weren't. So it was hard to get real advice and real information about what the real world is like as an artist. And I learned a lot of really effective information. But as far as inspiration goes, I tend to get a lot of inspiration from artists around me. So whoever's
Hmm.
creating with me and around me, I also have been collaborating with other artists since 2016. I would go to like parties in undergrad, and then I would meet other artists, and I put a collab in the calendar, and then we would draw on top of each other's styles. But in high school, I guess I would say it's just, other creative people around me and seeing what they're making, and using art also as a distraction from whatever else was going on was
Hmm.
also great. But I had a show in my senior year of high school, and I called it Marginal Boredom, and it was about doodling in the margins of my paper. And
I
everybody
love
kept
that.
telling me that, yeah, I love the name too, but everyone kept
Hmm.
saying that's a horrible name, Marginal Boredom. Who's going to want to go to that show? But I'm like, but it's true. Like, it's
Hmm.
the boredom in the margins of the paper. But that was me taking those doodles and that boredom and putting it in the forefront. And at the time, I thought it was just boredom, but now I know that that was ADHD stimming. Like,
Hmm.
those are repetition and patterns, those subconscious lines that I kept making over and over and over again. That was me stimulating my brain so that I could actually focus in school. And
Wow.
I do that all the time. I would normally be doodling right now, but I have a little donut fidget toy that I'm playing with while we're talking. So,
That's so interesting.
but yeah.
So I mean, the realism that you were learning, I always say to everyone on their journey, no matter what they're doing, whether it's art or music or whatever the subject matter is, everything on your path is relevant. Like that realism and that perspective, then that learning from them in that time of your life, now applying it to the art that you're doing now and how you're merging them. It's just it's unique to be able to look back at that and now and say, hey, look at how I incorporated that and how now that takes on a whole new look and feel or style or whatever you want to call it. Um, and I'm wondering, have you seen that in other things you've kind of merged and created like recently? And how many years ago was that? Just so we can have some perspective on high school versus now.
So I'm 29 now. So I was about 11, 12 years ago when my
Hmm.
style kind of shifted.
That's really
Yeah.
cool. That's really cool. And then color. You have so much color. I love what you're wearing. I love the background. I love how we can see your artwork. Tell us about the understanding of color and how that works with the whole perspective that you're bringing to the table with your art.
Yeah, so I used to do a lot of drawings in black and white, like when I
Hmm.
was growing up, which is mostly like pencil sketches and stuff like that. But I've just always been a huge fan of color. I had quote unquote favorite colors as a kid, but since being an adult, people ask my favorite color, and I say it's the rainbow because I can't pick one. They're all great.
I can't pick one
Um,
either. How could you ask
but
me to do that?
yeah, they're also great. But
Mhm.
when I was formally trained as a painter, I was taught how to use primary colors to mix my own colors. So I found that my pieces were a lot more muted when it comes to
Mhm.
like 10 years ago or so. And then I kind of gave myself permission to buy different paints that were more neon and funky colors that were pre-mixed. And for some reason, I felt like that was wrong because of the way I was formally trained to mix paints. And then I saw
Yeah.
my high school art teacher a few years ago, and she was like, "You're allowed to do that. You're allowed to buy different color paints. You already know the rules. You already know how to mix and everything like that." So once I allowed myself to sort of expand my palette in the last year, my pieces have definitely uh they're the colors that I want them to be. As much as they're every single color in the rainbow, like I finally have a chance to sort of, and I've also discovered paint markers and paint pens. So those
Oh,
are also
cool.
technically pre-mixed colors. And I have always loved drawing too. So paint markers are like the perfect happy medium for me. So I can do both. But I don't know. There's something about highlighting everything,
Hmm.
maximalism, making work that doesn't just have one. thing that's important. The ADHD mind has a million different things going on at the same time. So I've always got a million different colors going on at the same time, a bunch of different patterns, a bunch of different objects hidden inside these abstract paintings. Why keep it minimal with one thing if that's not how my brain works? That's how I was
Yeah,
masking. And I
that
believe that
makes
my art
sense.
style pre-diagnosis was me masking through my art. That's why it was so much more simple, because I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know who I was yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, art helped you understand who you were. So,
Yeah.
and it was sort of like a healing process, and it's probably going to continue throughout your life as you understand more and more. And as artists, like we are told, we're shown masters, we're told techniques, we're shown colorways and what works and what doesn't. And our job is to disrupt them, right? Our job is to find our unique perspective and style and understanding. Art is so personal. And I mean, you've termed this intuitive ADHD art, right? It's remarkable. It's so unusual. Um, and I know, can you kind of like you kind of have been walking us through the creative process, but I'm just so interested because I'm an artist also. I know that other people are so interested in that as well. How does that, besides like what you said before, how does the neurodivergence influence your approach to your work? Does it just break all the barriers and just allow you to have freedom and permission? And I'm just interested in that.
Yeah, so it's hard to know what it's like to create if you're not neurodivergent, because I've this
Hmm.
is the way my brain has always been.
Hmm.
But the way that I create is I play, I let the medium do its thing. I try to pre-plan as little as possible, and I find images as I go, just sort of like finding shapes in the clouds. And then
Hmm.
I don't really know until after the process is done what the piece is really about, because it takes a little bit of reflection and staring at the work and understanding what my mindset or mood was while I was
Hmm.
creating. And
Hmm.
then that's how my titles come to fruition. That's how like the story comes to fruition. And oops, I completely forgot the initial question, but that's neurodivergence for you. Oh
Yeah, well,
wait,
that's
neurodivergence.
neurodivergence.
Okay,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Now I remember.
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes ADHD people, like, we forget what the story is or what someone's talking about, and then mid
Hmm.
thought or right when they start to explain it again, it's like, oh wait, no, I got it.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, so just intuitively utilizing my neurodivergence is basically not stopping and thinking,
Hmm.
not doing a lot of standing back and looking at it and thinking about what to do next.
Hmm.
Because when I do that, I have pieces that sit unfinished for like months to years at a time. And
Do
I
you
have this
find
big
yourself
pile in the
doing that
corner.
though? Do you find yourself like, do you have to make yourself not stop and dive into criticism or critiquing or analyzing? Is that like a practice you literally have to make sure that you stop and do and say, no, I'm not going to break this flow? Because I experience that too. I mean, just in general, if I do get the brain involved, then the process stops, and I'm not in fluidness. I'm not in flow, and you can really understand the difference. It's a completely different experience.
Yeah. I find, when I used to work, I'm a full-time artist now, but when I used to work other full-time jobs and then come home and paint, it would usually be like a weekend and I would paint for pretty much 48 hours straight. Like I would go sleep and then I'd wake up and paint, and then I would like paint until sunset and then like go to bed. Or I would get home from work and then I would just like paint up until like midnight. And
Mm,
now that I'm full time, I actually find it's a lot harder to like get a piece like finished than it was when I only had a certain period of time to work on it.
yes. Yeah.
And so now I have I have so many unfinished pieces. I had I was sick with COVID over the holidays. So once
Mm,
I was recovering, I finally got inspiration to finish a bunch of unfinished pieces. But I think that was because I physically couldn't work for a while. So I was like, oh, now I got to do it. But in the normal everyday full-time artist life, yes, I'll start a piece and then, I'll have to be busy with like business side of things and whatever else, or I have to do
mhm.
housework. There's all kinds of things that you got to do.
Right.
And then I'm like, if it's not a specific commission for somebody, it's just for me,
Hmm.
and I stop working, it's probably going to sit there and you know, chill for another 6 months. But some of my best work is also work that hangs out for about 6 months. And then I get a moment of inspiration where like, now it's time to work on it. I don't know
Yeah.
where it comes
Yes.
from, but it's just like
Hmm.
a feeling. And then I just sit and I finish it. And then I usually like my pieces 10 times better than if I had just sat and did it in one day, because
Mm-hmm.
I think it had time to evolve and
Mm-hmm.
I really understood where it was going and what the meaning was rather than just like, I'm going to paint because I feel like painting. Because then it's more about the flow, which is
Mm-hmm.
great, but concept is also just as important as how it looks. So,
Yeah. And it's calling to you, right? And it's done over
mhm.
time and it's meaningful and it expresses itself through you. And it's probably like if you're doing commission pieces, which is so cool. And I'm so happy for you. And then you're doing your own pieces. It's like it's so personal, right? When you're doing your own piece. Um, the thing that's so interesting about your artwork is so intricate. There's so much detail, and I love the hidden imagery that you have, um, which really invites viewers to kind of like dive in, right, and explore all the different perspectives that are there. And the titles of your pieces are so unique. Is there something that you are trying to like you're hoping to convey so that people can have their own experiences and experience the emotions or have messages that they receive from it? Is it something that you think about, or is it something that people kind of express to you when they experience your art? It's so interesting.
So I usually give viewers two options. The first one is, would you like to know the backstory? And the second one is, well, actually, it's just one question. Would you like to know the backstory? And they either say, yes, tell me the backstory, or
Hmm.
no, 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 I want to have my own experience with it. And it's about 50-50 when that happens. And I'm cool with it either way. I usually tell them the title gives a hint to what the piece is about. And so they can come up with their own interpretation. Or I have them like, what do you think it's about? And then like they guess and guess and guess. And I'm like, those are great, observations. Do you want to know what was on my mind when I was making it? There was one piece, it's titled Outcast, and I created it while I was living in a not so good living situation. I had a verbally abusive roommate and I felt like an outcast. There was just a lot of unhealthy things there. And I was not able to finish that piece until I moved out and found my own place. And I had that piece in a show. And I asked them what they thought it was about. And then they saw like seclusion, like fear. And then
Mm.
they said College Street. And the house that I lived on was what that I lived in was right off College Street. And they just said that street. And how did they know that that was that house?
That's so
Like
cool. Yeah, that's
it's
neat.
it's it's really random and weird how some people sort of see what I was thinking, because it's
Mhm.
just when someone looks at it and they're not really like into art or they're not into my art, they just see randomness. But when someone really sees it, they see like pretty much into my soul. So
Mhm.
it's
Yeah, for sure.
definitely it's a journey for me as an artist, but it's a journey for the viewer as well. And I have two solo shows coming up as well. So and I'm really kind of trying to curate those collections into ways that make sense for the viewer's eye. And I'm really excited to see those reactions and how they connect like and flow from one piece to another rather than just like at an art fair where all of my work is just kind of in one small booth. It's going to be spread out and
Yes.
like they'll be able to individually connect with each of those pieces.
It's really cool. It's so interesting to me too because I want to stay in touch with you and I want to see how your work evolves as an artist over time and how your style will change and what you'll bring to the table. It's so interesting to me. But transitioning from being in school, right, right, and going from your story that you described in high school to then, in academia, just as a whole, and then establishing yourself as a full-time professional artist, that's not easy. A lot of people shy away from that. And now couple that with your ADHD, what are some of the challenges that you face along the way? And if for somebody who's hearing your story and maybe is trying to, they might have the challenges of the same challenges that you have, or they might just be, inspired by your art journey. What are some of the things that you might, um, you know, list as how, some of the challenges that you face along the way that you can inspire them to or help them, assist them on their journeys?
Yeah, so it definitely wasn't easy to like get to the point of being a full-time artist. The silly thing about it is that
Mhm.
COVID both helped and hurt my art career in a weird
Yeah.
way. So I graduated in 2018, and then I did a year of social justice work in Washington, D.C. And that was a year of like, there wasn't a lot of art involved. I had one painting. It's actually this painting. You can see like the top of it over here. It's called Scatterbrain. And I worked on it whenever I could throughout that year. It was Velcroed to my wall. And I just
Mhm.
went in with a paint pen, and it's just like a bunch of different sections of doodles. And that was the only thing art wise. And then I had two shows during that year, but not really. And that was the year after I graduated. But that year was mostly about community building and social justice and all that jazz. So then I moved back home to New Orleans, and I wanted to save up so I could travel. And during that time, I worked for another artist, and I was selling his work in the Marigny in New Orleans, which is like a very like high tourist foot traffic kind of area. And during that time and talking to all the artists next to me in their booth selling their work, I realized I need to work for myself. So in January 2020, I launched Kyla Yager Artwork, and I started my art business. Yeah, it was really exciting. I was vending every week. I had my first solo exhibition at a public library. I was doing the thing. And then my solo show opened on March 7th, 2020. And then, a week later,
COVID.
everything shut down. So
Mhm.
it was interesting and also very upsetting. And I was like, I just did all of this work. After my BFA, I did all the things you're supposed to do. And then suddenly my art career down the toilet. But then immediately, I was working as a substitute teacher at the time. So March 13th, they were saying on the overcom system or whatever, like, yeah, like this is going to be the last day of school. Like we don't know what's happening with this like disease. So I had never made a website so fast in my life. I was just like, I am going to make a
Pivot.
website now. I'm going to do it. And, like a month later, I made a TikTok, and then I did more Instagram stuff. And I don't know if I would have like put so much effort into the online version of my art career so quickly. Um, it was pretty upsetting though, because I was just getting into the groove of markets and showing my work and everything. And it's fine because I think back about what my style looked like pre-COVID, and I just don't like it anymore. It's not my taste. It was not what my style was supposed to be, and COVID
Mhm.
needed to happen in order for me to find my signature style.
Mhm.
And I don't know if I would actually be where I am in my art career. I mean, sure, my style may have gone a different direction if the pandemic didn't happen, but I think I needed to go through a little bit of trauma and a little bit of, tough situations in order for my style to take the turn that it did.
Mhm.
And a lot of other stuff happened in between mentally for me. There was even a point where I couldn't get out of bed for 4 months straight. And
Wow.
I I know that now through all of that, I was like randomly in the daycare industry. I was randomly, I was working so many random jobs. Then I had a creative industry job where I was the art program leader for an extracurricular company. And I realized that working full time in a creative industry job takes away my personal creativity. So after working that job for about a year, I decided not to return after getting laid off for the summer. I was like, I'm not going to come back in September. And I made it like my goal. I was like, I need to prove to myself that I can do this full time. So I did this entrepreneur business accelerator program through OCAD, which is the Ontario College of Art and Design. And I learned all the basics like finances, like business stuff. And then I have a business coach now, and I have, well, throughout all of that, I've had a very amazing therapist, and just a lot of great friends and support systems in my life. And I'm starting to find communities that really are helpful to me. And I have like a small business club that I'm a part of as well. And
Mhm.
all of those things combined have pushed me to be able to do what I'm doing today. Obviously, some months are better than others,
Mhm.
but during that creative industry job, I was also trying to be a full-time artist at the same time so that I could afford to do it. And it was too much. I have a piece
Yeah.
actually titled Brain Power, which is when you've got too many different things going on at the same time and your brain is just like you're using too much brain power. And a lot of those pieces represent that struggle of putting too much on your plate. And now that I'm a full-time artist, my piece, like, I'm starting to make collections that are more like specific to like sexuality or specific to like certain aspects of neurodivergence. And like my collections are just getting so specific and so in tune with who I am and what I'm doing. And it took all of those different pieces to get to where I am today. And I'm really proud of myself to like
You should
be
be.
able to say that I'm a full-time artist. So
You should be. It's quite a feat. And it's not easy to try to juggle and figure out what direction you want to be as an artist. I remember trying to decide, am I going to be a fine artist? Am I going to be a commercial artist? I didn't have experience in anything commercial. I didn't know. And all I knew was that I loved art and it was my passion. And I wanted to do that for the rest of my life. And I'm a professional artist. I have a BFA too. And it's so hard with every career and every decision that you make in your life to do and to hear what's inside, to hear the guidance inside that's driving you to the next part of your life. And you've been listening with the challenges that you've had and mental health and all those things that are your story, right? And to be able to sit there and say that you have art in galleries and you have commissioned pieces and you're 29, by the way, and went through a pandemic that was global and were able to pivot and change your direction and still connect with your art and make all those decisions. It's amazing. So you should be proud of yourself. And you are such an inspiration to not only artists, really, but artists that have ADHD and neurodivergence. um, I hope that your story can inspire so many people. I would love to be able to see your art live in person, but also it would be so cool if you brought something up to the camera. But do you think you'll ever teach one day? I kind of feel like you're going to be in some sort of a space of teaching eventually in the future because your story that you experienced it will it will affect your future. And there's so many people that need that kind of perspective and guidance and encouragement and experience.
yeah, so I've actually like started and teach. Well, I've always been a soccer coach. That's like my side gig, and
Hmm.
I've been a soccer coach since I was 15. But I started teaching art about 5 years ago, and I specific now that I'm freelance, I specifically teach intuitive art workshops. So I teach people how to let go of perfectionism and create with like like purpose and not worrying so much about what's going on the paper and just doing,
Hmm.
like starting with a scribble, starting with a line, using tools to move around our pen without like focusing on the direction. And I found that it's very helpful. I've worked with adults, I've worked with kids, I've worked with adults that have addiction or mental health issues. Worked with kids that are neurodivergent, and I'm hoping to find more. Although this year it's been my intention to not only create community through my art, but to find more of the performance side of my art rather than the sales aspect of my art,
Hmm.
because I'm a people person. I am an extrovert. I love talking to people. I love interacting with people. So in the past few weeks, I've been doing face painting, and it's so fun because you're right up there. You're right next to their face, and you're having these conversations with them. And I paint their energy. That's what I do. I
I
catch
love
their
that.
vibe. I'm very intuitive. It's funny. I'm very neurodivergent, so I don't necessarily catch on to social cues very easily, but I definitely catch on to people's vibes and energies really easily.
Hmm.
So if someone's like in a bad mood or someone's like feeling uncomfortable, like I can catch on to that very very quickly.
Hmm.
But regardless, like, I'll match their outfit a little bit. I'll do my abstract style, or like someone's like, I want a sunflower. I'm like, hey, would you want a sunflower or do you want a sunflower energy? And then
Hmm.
so I'll do like part petals, part abstract, and then like make it look cute around their face, just based on their face structure. And and then if it's a grown man with facial hair, that's a whole other story. It's like you go on a different journey around their face and
Yes.
everything like that. But
Hmm.
and then live painting as well. Like I really want to have audiences included in the experience with me, because
Yeah.
painting is just so fun. It's
Yeah.
so fun. I enjoy it so much wholeheartedly, and I want people to be a part of that process. I don't want them to just stand there and connect with a piece on their own. Like, well, yes, I want that to happen, but I want to go a step further than just like, this is the art, will you buy it? Like, I don't do that, but that's sort of how it feels. And I want people to have that experience of being within the art. Sure, workshops are important in teaching people how to create the art, but they're going to have to go on their own personal journey through their own personal style in order to get to their intuitive process. As
Mm-hmm.
far as like I can teach them how to get started, they're going to have to continue on their own time.
Yeah.
And I do love it when, you know, past students reach out to me and be like, look what I made today. And I'm like, oh my God, it's very exciting. But yeah, I can definitely show you a piece.
Yeah, well,
Um,
your artwork is an experience. So whether it's on a canvas, right? It's almost like the experience that you just described is like breaking it out and
yeah,
making it three-dimensional, making it not only three-dimensional, five-dimensional, getting into that energy space that you talked about, which is, as artists, we're super intuitive. We're connected to our higher self, to our guides, to spirit. And you're downloading inspiration, you're downloading guidance, you're healing while you're doing your artwork, and ultimately you're healing others. And I'm wondering, and yes, I would love to see your artwork up close, but I'm wondering, do you ever think like, I kind of see you working specifically with ADHD children and adults to help harness their energy, to help understand themselves, to help heal themselves the way that you have been, like the journey that you have had. And it's beautiful because there's a large community there, and community is your answer. Really, community is your answer, Kayla. It's so cool.
yeah, and that's the goal this year. My intention for 2024 was to like community and the performative aspect of my art. Like
Mm-hmm.
so like creating community and then sharing what I do on a stage, on a platform where I can get that adrenaline rush of showcasing what I do, but in the meantime, creating connections with people along the way.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, you're a bright spirit. You really are. And I'm really happy to have met you. We crossed paths and we connected through art. Will you run and get a piece of art really quickly?
Yes. Oh, this is a
That
good
would be
one.
fun.
So this one, it's a very recent piece. It's not even varnished yet. It's
Wow.
called The Overshare, and it's about
Wow.
that uncomfortable feeling of accidentally oversharing too much about yourself in especially when you're meeting a new person.
Right.
Um, but it's that you're saying too much, but it's also about like I wanted to title it Oversharing is Caring, but I think I'm just going to put that in the description of the piece.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
being in spaces where you feel safe enough to overshare and nobody will judge you for it, rather
Mm-hmm.
than you overshared, this is just awkward. No, you overshared and people are listening, and then they'll overshare back, and then you'll start talking on top of each other, and then it's just all over the place. And um, that's the thing. I'm just trying to create more comfort and community through the ADHD community, through
Mm-hmm.
art, and show people like your negative, quote unquote, negative traits might
Mm-hmm.
actually be wonderful positive traits. And you
Mm-hmm.
just have to look at it that way instead of judging others for what they cannot control neurologically. So, but
Yeah,
this is
and
a
ways
fun
to
one. It's lots of
connect.
I even do the
Yeah,
sides of most of my pieces too,
that's awesome. I
because
love the
who
colors,
likes, who wants to
I
frame anything?
and who hasn't been in that situation where I know I have, because I get fueled by other people's energy. If the space is filled with energy, then I suddenly am like buzzing and vibrating, and I might just start talking a lot, and then I've overshared. Let's just say that I've overshared. I think that the simplicity of the title is amazing. It just allows people to get into the space and identify what it means to them, even tap into
Yeah.
that experience that they've had, right? It's so cool. Okay. So I want to, we're going to put it in the show notes, but I want you to tell people where they can find you. I want you to tell us what's coming up in your life. And then, you know, if anyone has a question, they can reach out to me, but I want everyone to be able to find your artwork.
Amazing. So my website is kylayagerartwork.com. You can find links to my workshops, my online store, or just my portfolio, or any of that stuff. And then you can find me on Instagram at artby.kylay, so artby.kylay. And then you can find me on TikTok at Kyla Yager Artwork. And where else? My next shows. I have two upcoming solo exhibitions in February. Oh wait, when is this going to be aired again? I forget. But
In the
if you
spring.
are around
Yeah.
in the spring, okay. Well, you will see pictures from my past exhibition, February 10th through 16th at the Youthful Vengeance Cafe and Gallery in Toronto on Dundas Street. And then I have another exhibition at the University of Guelph Humber Art Gallery in March, from March 5th through 18th. And then coming up in the summer, I am still waiting to hear back from applications, but there will be upcoming art fairs. I've also applied to a few installations in the States, so hopefully I can travel for more opportunities. But if you are looking to connect with me and you're looking for either murals, workshops, live painting, or even just connecting and having a coffee over art, and or if you want me to come to your city and you want to just network and do something cool, have an art party, like, just let me know. And I'm
That
always
sounds
happy
so
to
fun.
collaborate. So
Yeah.
yeah, I also am always looking for musicians to live paint on stage their music. So if you are a musician and you want to collaborate in that way, I would love to connect.
Oh my gosh, you're speaking my language, lady. We've got the same like desires going on.
Yeah. I'm
Music and
also
art.
looking for more public speaking opportunities too. So if like you've got an institution, you have a bunch of ADHD people and they need a little inspiration, I'm happy to come chat or be on a panel, something like that. So
You're amazing. I think you're going to be doing so many wonderful things in your future. You've only just begun. You've really only just begun. And as people are expanding their consciousness, tapping into these creative spaces more and more, which allows them to connect with themselves, that's going to just continue to expand and expand and expand. So I would love to stay in touch with you. I'm going to check out your artwork again. I'm feeling drawn to go and visit. And I want to know what you're doing. So maybe we can have a conversation, in the future and continue the conversation that we had today and find out what Kayla's
amazing.
doing. Yes, it's awesome. So thank you so much for being here today. And to our audience, thank you for listening to this story. And again, connect with Kayla. We'll be putting all of her information in the show notes. And to everyone, remember, within every moment lies the call to listen to your spirit. Answer it, honor it, and always live the call. I hope today's episode sparked insights for you on your healing journey. If you're searching for support and connection, you should join our community at spirit-calling.com. Spirit Calling is a like-minded community of spiritual individuals learning, sharing, and growing together every day. No matter what you're experiencing in your journey, you'll find resources and a community to support you along the way. Until next time, keep listening to your internal guidance and stepping into your spirit's call.